The Magic Pillow by K.J. Kratz. Chapter 1. Dark gray clouds filled the skies as I navigated the reckless, half-asleep traffic on a mid-December morning. Normally, we had warm, dry winters because of what some suggested were the early signs of global warming, but that year, the clouds had filled the skies by early fall and yielded very few days of sunlight. The air turned cold in early September and insistently embraced us through winter. The weather had been well suited for the type of year we'd had. It seemed that everyone decided to die that year, and I bought sympathy cards in bulk. Even my great-aunt Sarah had decided to call it quits at age 98, after outliving her children and 3 husbands. Sarah had been such a strong woman who had loved life and enjoyed every minute. She'd been wealthy because of her sharp mind and the brilliant investment decisions she'd made. Sarah owned land, real estate, and oil wells, all of which she had managed throughout her life. Because Sarah was alone, I had visited her frequently, especially in her last days. She was my mentor. She taught me all about her investments and how she had made those decisions. We used to discuss the importance of building self-esteem and confidence. Sarah had told me many stories about her life and how she had used adversity to create opportunity. I hoped I would be as spry as she was when I turned 98. I didn't feel that energetic that day. My commute to work was only 20 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Even though Aunt Sarah had been my mentor, I didn't seem to have any of her traits. I believed I had been a lot like her years ago. I had had confidence and was creative and free. I guess when you grow up, you tend to lose old traits and take on new ones. I always felt I'd do something great, but the truth was I was just average. After all, if I had been special or great, wouldn't I have been promoted by that point? I work for Trust Insurance Company, which had hired a new vice president of distribution that year. He had major credentials and came from another large insurance company on the Northeast coast. His name was Max, and he was very tall, with dark hair and nearly black eyes. He dresses in the finest suits and always wore large gold cufflinks shaped like squares. His initial was engraved on the square with a small diamond tucked under the middle point of the M. When he talked and gestured, his cufflinks flashed in the light, and every once in a while, I caught a brilliant sparkle from the diamonds. "Taking off work again tomorrow?" Max asked with a stern smile. "You've been taking off work quite a bit lately. I hope I don't see your sales team suffer because of it. I noticed the teams were averaging only 20 meetings a week. That's a far cry from the 30 that's expected of them." His smile grew on his psychotic, smirky face. "But we're currently at 120% of our goal, and our client satisfaction is very high," I said in a shaking tone. "I'd better not see the team's performance start to sag, or we'll have to look at making some changes around here." "It's almost Christmas, Max, and our team has worked hard all year. We need time off to spend with our families. Most of us didn't take vacations this year because of the economy," I said. "Jenna, the holidays are no excuse," Max firmly stated. I folded my arms so he couldn't see me shaking. I walked to the south side of the building. I remembered the day when I could walk around the office, spreading my smile and positive energy. I always believed that as long as I kept a positive attitude, I'd have endless opportunities and doors that would swing open for me. I walked down the dark hallway to the bathroom on the south side of the building to grab a minute. The south side of our building was nearly empty because several years ago, the company had planned for a large expansion that ended up on hold due to the poor economy. This had left the space absent of warm bodies and energy. All it contained were empty gray cubes. I walked into the restroom that lit up when the energy-saving sensors noticed me. I stood in front of a large mirror. The bathroom was totally gray, except for the white toilets. Just like the rest of the building, it was a giant nothing. There were no pictures on the walls in this uninhabited part of the building. I stared at myself and saw sandy brown hair and green eyes with a hint of darkness creeping in under them. I noticed the tiny wrinkles starting to form around my eyes. They reminded me that I was getting older and that several years of my life had just evaporated into thin air. What about the children I've always wanted? I asked myself. My brain was flooded with thousands of questions. I felt trapped and wasn't sure how to change the life I had built. Everything just seemed so wrong. As I sorted through those thoughts and emotions, a question kept repeating itself. Am I really living? I tried to figure out why I had ended up in this situation, and more important, how I was going to get out of it. At that moment, I realized I hadn't been acknowledging my surroundings and had become complacently trapped. I had allowed that feeling to become a normal part of my everyday routine. I stared at myself a few minutes longer before I headed back to my desk to finish up some things before the end of the day. I knew I couldn't take off work the next day because of Max's comments, but I had some errands to run before Christmas, including wrapping gifts, picking up last-minute stocking stuffers, and baking cookies to take to my parents' home. My husband, Kyle, had already decided to work, since he'd taken off work throughout the year to attend triathlon competitions. He'd left our gym in the hands of our other employees. We were preparing to celebrate marathon holidays with our families. It would require our driving 500 miles in 4 days, and I realized I'd be staying up until midnight trying to get everything finished. I silently made my way back to my desk, trying not to be noticed by Max, but as soon as I sat down, he showed up at my office door. "Jenna, there's something I need to discuss with you," he said, as his eyes and smile grew quite devilish. "What do we need to discuss?" I asked. "Well, we're going to make some big changes next year." "What do you mean by big changes?" "We're looking at performance, and we believe that due to some performance issues, we'll be doing some consolidation with management." "What do you mean by consolidation?" I asked as my stomach fell. "Well, if we don't see increased performance from our managers, and this includes you, we feel like we'll start consolidating to other teams." "Well, my team is up 120% over the goal, so I'd assume I was okay." "You think 120 is good?" "You have a lot to learn, Jenna," he said in a crude voice. "I know others in the industry doing 200. As he left my office, I realized he wanted me to leave the company. I was afraid he probably had someone else in mind for my position, and more than likely, it was one of his friends from his previous employer. I realized he'd be picking apart everything that I did and scrutinizing every piece of work to find something, anything, wrong with it. Kyle got home around 9 that evening. I was exhausted from running all my errands. I watched him walk through the door, brushing his hand through his dark brown hair. I admired his handsome physique and his smooth stride. He was muscular, and you could tell that he was a professional weight trainer. We'd been married for 5 years, but had decided to postpone having children because we were so busy with our careers. "You hear the big news?" Kyle was excited. "There's a huge snowstorm heading our way, and we could end up getting 2 feet of snow." He had a childlike tone in his voice. "It's supposed to start snowing on Christmas Eve and last 3 days. "Great, that's just what I needed to hear. What are we going to do?" I asked as my voice and blood pressure rose. "I don't know," Kyle said. I was exhausted. The last thing I wanted to think about was a snowstorm. I hated snow and had always dreamed of moving to a warm place where I'd never have to deal with it again. "I guess I should just prepare for us to stay here and hope it doesn't snow as much as the meteorologists have predicted," I said as I walked to the kitchen to grab Kyle's dinner sitting in the oven. It was a bit dry by then. I handed Kyle his dinner, but he pushed it aside. I've already eaten. I just grabbed something on the way home. Oh, okay. I guess you can take this for lunch then. Sure. I'm going to bed, because I need to be up by 4 to get to the gym. Why so early? I thought Sean was handling the early mornings. Sean can't make it tomorrow, so I have to be there. Does that mean you're going to be home early tomorrow? Jenna, I'm going to bed. I'm tired, and I need to get some rest. Okay, fine. I walked back to the kitchen, feeling as though I were going to explode. I started wondering about what my life had become. The next day, I drove to work, hoping I wouldn't have to listen to Max's crude comments. I hurried to my desk, but walked all the way around the other side of our department so I wouldn't have to walk past his office. I knew that if he saw me, he'd try to hold me up with some ridiculous project. As soon as I sat down, I started putting the finishing touches on next year's business plan. I was busy typing some revisions on the plan for a new region the company wanted to target when I heard, "Women can't type so much faster than men." It was Max. Oh God, he wants me to type another memo for him. Jenna, I need you to stop what you're doing and type this memo for me. I need to get this out right away, he said with that devilish smirk. What about your assistant Julie? Why can't she type this? Well, it's technical, and I don't think Julie can understand the message I'm trying to convey. I don't need to remind you that we're planning on making some big changes around here, he said with his piercing glare. I'll get it done, I said, as I envisioned my fist slamming into his perfect plastic face and watching the Botox ooze out of his perfectly curved cheeks. Oh, and Jenna, can you stop by my office real quick? There's something I'd like to show you. Sure, I said, hesitantly, wondering what ridiculous thing he would create in order to make more work. As I walked into his office, I noticed an email I had sent had been printed out and was sitting on his desk with red ink all over it. Jenna, do you see this?